Hey, what's up guys? John here. 30 days ago, I put out a video and I said, real estate market's gonna crash with 100% proof. Prove me wrong, I'll delete the video. I'll give you full credit for proving me wrong. And out of 844 comments, not a single person was able to prove me wrong. The reason being is because I was pulling everything from whitehouse.gov. They were telling us what they were intending to do. And a lot of it looks like it's moving right in that direction. So what's pretty crazy now though, is the Security and Exchange Commission stepping in to pound that into law and to make it reality. So we heard about it here first, and now I'm going to share with you what the SEC is doing, how it's going to impact banks, likely underwriting, the entire real estate sector. And as always, there's no speculation or assumptions. I'm just sharing what they're saying, sharing the facts, and this is all coming into place the next 6 months. They're starting this. So in 6 months, we're going to start to see this whole thing unravel, it looks like. And I believe that this could be a reason why you have a lot of big companies, a lot of big home builders, a lot of REITs right now that are selling off due to potentially the uncertainty ahead with rising interest rates, potentially these new changes, and knowing that home appreciation and this demand is not sustainable over the long term. SEC climate proposals are a wake-up call for real estate. This came out April 12th. The real estate industry is built on other people's money. A lot of those investors now will be asking tough questions about climate change, thanks to new regulations proposed by the Security and Exchange Commission. Late last month, the SEC announced that publicly traded organizations would soon need to disclose their climate change risk and exposure. The former includes direct physical risk to their business, such as the impact of sustained higher temperatures, sea level rise, or persistent wildfires, as well as transition risk stemming from the shift to lower carbon economy. We are concerned that the existing disclosure of climate-related risks do not adequately protect investors, the SEC said. For this reason, we believe that additional disclosure requirements may be necessary or appropriate to elicit climate-related disclosures and to improve the consistency, comparability, and reliability on climate-related disclosures. Because most large real estate players are private companies, they are not subject to these disclosures, and most of the big shops that are public, such as REITs, already disclose their emissions. But the new regulations are likely to pressure the industry through the capital markets, publicly traded firms, including investment managers, and big banks. Big banks, what does that mean? That means that if they are now going to be under a tougher lens to meet certain guidelines, they're going to be much more careful about where they lend money and exactly how much money they're willing to lend on a certain amount of asset. If that asset is generating more risk, then they're going to demand much more money as a down payment, or maybe they don't lend on it at all, including investment managers, big banks, which are key sources of debt and equity for major private real estate companies. The new disclosure means they will ask tougher questions about how the property portfolio they're backing are being built and operated. Publicly traded firms that lease space will too be pushed and to make climate change conscious demands of their landlords. Real estate operators have traditionally been lax when it comes to reckoning with climate change. Many have stuck their head in the sand or paid fines rather than to deal with the problem. The SEC proposal takes that option off of the table. The lifeblood of your business is on the line if you decide to forego reporting in favor of fines, stated seed stage prop tech investor Shadow Investments of the new proposals in a report the firm shared in advance of publications exclusive with The Real Deal. You don't disclose, you don't get their business. The Real Deal cut through the SEC proposals legalese and regulatory jargon to identify what real estate needs to know. First, the proposal highlights climate-related events, risks to projects and properties from wildfires, hurricanes, earthquakes, coastal erosion, and the like. For example, how sea level rise affects the value of South Florida or Lower Manhattan property portfolios over the next 10 years. In the US alone, roughly $1.3 trillion alone worth of real estate was at the higher extreme risk from wildfires alone, according to an Urban Land Institute report in 2020. Exposure has only grown since. Second, if the SEC will require companies to disclose their carbon footprint and greenhouse gas emissions, both direct and indirect, when it comes to buildings, it's more important to understand the different tiers of their emissions, widely known as scopes. Scope 1, a company's direct greenhouse gas emissions originating from the company's owned assets. Scope 2, indirect emissions from the generation of purchased electricity, steam, heating, and cooling. Scope 3, emissions from upstream and downstream activities in the company's value chain. For a real estate owner doing business with public companies, Shadow Ventures speculates that this would mean that Scope 1 emissions from building, energy expenditures, and other assets owned or controlled, vehicles, appliances, storage tanks, pipelines, wells, or other equipment directly by the company. Scope 2, purchased electricity or energy from assets owned or controlled by the company. And Scope 3, energy and wastewater materials purchases and inventory, construction waste, and emissions from all downstream suppliers and subcontractors. And so to give you kind of context of what this is going to look like, with Scope 1, greenhouse gas emissions from sources that are owned, controlled by the federal agency. So you can kind of get an idea here exactly how they are calculating everything and the responsibility of property owners, banks, and institutions, both public and private, when they step into the real estate space. Scope 2, greenhouse gas emissions resulting from the generation of electricity, heat, and steam purchased by a federal agency, right? Scope 3, greenhouse gas emissions from sources not owned or directly controlled by a federal agency, but related to agency activities. This last tier, Scope 3, where things get interesting. Industry insiders say landlords and developers would have to assess not only their activities, but those of their whole ecosystem. I hope that this causes more pressure on our supply chain, said Sarah Neff, Director of Sustainability at Lend Lease, a global developer and contractor. I think this will create the market conditions to see more rapid innovation. The SEC is finalizing aspects of the ruling and requesting comments by May. Some of these companies would be required to comply starting in fiscal 2023. Investors in this space predict brisk business for climate tech and startups focused on built environment. Jennifer Place, a principal on the climate tech real estate focused venture capital firm Fifth Wall, described the SEC proposal as a wake-up call for the industry and a step in the right direction. She identified 4 buckets ripe for startups: analytics, compliance, mitigation, and carbon accounting. Companies have traditionally soiled carbon impacts reporting from the rest of their accounting. Now Place said it will be more integrated. Place is watching to see if the big accounting firms such as PwC and EY develop their own climate reporting frameworks or absorb or invest in startups specializing in that, making climate reporting frameworks mandatory, and also helps tackle another problem. Self-policing historically doesn't lead to great outcomes. This ruling is really going to help companies become aware what their carbon emissions are. Lend-Lease Neff says you're motivated to start reducing them and reducing environmental impact. Other fields ripe for innovation, according to Shadow Ventures, are building management systems, material engineering, technology that makes construction faster and more efficient. Built world startups with a climate-focused message have seen growing interest in both generalist and climate-focused VCs over the past year. Climate AI, a platform for sustainability data, raised $50 million in a SoftBank-led round in December. Icon, a 3D home printing startup, had a valuation just shy of $2 billion after Tiger Global led a $185 million round in February. And Turntide Technologies, which builds energy-efficient electric motors, raised $80 million last March in a round led by Bill Gates' Breakthrough Energy Ventures. The SEC's new regulations would accelerate and increase such bets on the space, the investors said. Innovation and implementation will be the only way forward, Ness said. Actions such as purchasing carbon offsets and renewable energy certificates, which allow real estate operators to avoid tackling the embodied carbon in their portfolios, are becoming unfeasible because their prices are skyrocketing and figures to rise further as the SEC proposal increases demand. It's getting increasingly expensive, Ness says, to buy your way out of this problem. This is what I've been talking about all along. We're stepping into a very different real estate market. In the past, the real estate market generally is based on fundamentals, such as multifamily property based on cash flow or opportunity, or on a house based on the neighborhood or the state or the benefits of owning in a specific neighborhood. All of this is changing. It's changing the way that you're able to buy property, underwrite the deal, potentially pull power for that property, utilities. Everything is getting really restructured right now in a very big way. And 99% of people are asleep at the wheel. They don't understand what's happening. This is all happening. It's happening very quickly. What are your thoughts on this? Drop your comments below. Smash that like button. Subscribe here. Consider subbing to my second YouTube channel. It's going to become a podcast. I'm going to bring on some very, very smart investors and entrepreneurs to pick their brain on leading issues that no one else is talking about. Also, consider subbing on my TikTok, where I post between 3 and 5 times a day. I'm going to leave the links pinned down for everything down below. See you guys later. One-on-one call. To get a one-on-one mentoring and a personal consultation tailored around your YouTube channel or your real estate project, click the link in the description below this video and register for a one-on-one Zoom call with me.